What inappropriate thing did you do as a child that you didn't realize was inappropriate until later? I was probably 5 or 6, a family friend's wife had just passed, and I hadn't really had any death talk yet. So I asked Mum, where do dead people go? And she explained to me about coffins and tombs and so on. Fascinated, I sketched a drawing of the guy's wife inside of the tomb, and went to show him. Luckily my mum stopped me at the right time. I couldn't understand why I wasn't supposed to show him. When I was about 5, I went through an entrepreneurial phase. I used to go around picking flowers out of the neighbors' flower beds, then ringing their doorbell and trying to sell them their own flowers. When I was 67, my pet mouse died. We buried it in the backyard. The next day my older cousin came to visit. I dug it up and put it back in the cage. I thought she'd also like to pay her respects. My mom was like, no honey, it's disrespectful. You have to let the dead be at peace. Somewhere around 5 years old, my parents hosted Thanksgiving. At the table, one of the adults asked if there was anything new with me. I responded, my dad picks his boogers and eats them. I still clearly recall the shocked silence. I'm 56 now. Pooped at my grandparents' house and ran out of TP, used the sink hand towel instead and threw it in the trash. 5 minutes later, Granddad was all WTF. Asked my dad if he had a rocket in his pocket because I heard the song Rubbin' by Chocolate and was too young to not understand that they didn't mean an actual toy rocket. Yeah. Looking at the lyrics now, I was way too young to hear that song, lol. I called my mom a cocksucker when I was like 10, had no idea what it meant. When I was little, my best friend and I used to eat honeysuckle off the bushes next to my house. One day, the neighbor's kid came out and started yelling at us to get out. I argued back at her and we kept on doing it. A very long time later, I learned that it was actually their property. I didn't understand how lots worked, and I thought that any and all land that touched any side of your house belonged to you. I had a birthday party when I was like 8 or 10. One of my friends had a gnarly amount of earwax, so I grabbed a Q-tip and told him he had a lot of earwax as I handed it to him in front of everybody. I used to search for naked 13-year-old girls on Kazaa because, you know, I was 13 years old. It makes perfect sense to find girls in my age group. I'm thankful that the internet was so young back then because looking back on it, I'm horrified. I could have gotten myself or my parents in a shitload of trouble. And now I'll have to teach my own son that while, yes, being age appropriate makes sense, you can't do that. What compelled me to do it, but I would just put my clothes in the toilet after I was done bathing. Made zero sense to me. Underdeveloped child brain went BRRR, I guess. When I was a young girl, I used to watch professional wrestling with my older brothers. We also had to go to church Southern Baptist. They make prayer lists for people, and I raised my hand to ask that the Undertaker be put on the list so that he would win his upcoming match. So my parents couldn't afford daycare. My dad was still in college and my mom worked part-time, so it made more sense for me to stay home and all that. They had friends who had kids my age, so that's where I got my early social skills. When I was 5 or 6, one kid was talking about how he went to daycare. I said, very loudly, that I don't go to daycare because my parents want to spend time with me. My parents were mortified then, but now it's one of the funniest stories they've got from my childhood. Not me, but I walked in on my sister and her best friend, ages 4 and 5, in the bathroom once. Her best friend is buck naked, bent over spreading her butt cheeks apart. My sister is looking up in there. Do you see any poop up my bum? No, looks like you're good. When I was 7 or 8, I was at the grocery store with my mom. She asked me to help her unload groceries on the conveyor belt. I, a young elementary white boy, proceeded to yell yes messa. I don't even know where I originally heard that. I just remember not realizing that was probably not something I should say, then seeing my mom's face, and realizing that was probably not something I should say at all ever in any context. My favorite cartoon growing up was the Angry Beavers. They had an episode where they record a smash hit called Beaver Fever. I can vividly remember being maybe 5 years old and singing, "He's got the beaver fever at the top of my lungs" in public, and my mom struggling to shush me and me not knowing why. Made a prank call on random people. My brother and I would say something like, "This is the police, you're under arrest," and then giggled like idiots before we hang up the phone. Those poor people. Sorry y'all. Robbing small businesses blind of their candy. I stole a roasted chicken leg from a pan full of baked potatoes. I took it outside and left it on the porch. Not sure what my thought process was. We were supposed to have lunch, so I would have eaten a piece of it anyway. I was staying at my relative's house. I cussed the cat. On that farm I also played house with a local kid and we kissed. I was not older than 8. That whole stay was a complete minfuck. When I was a kid, I saw a cool looking symbol, so I decided to take some sidewalk chalk and decorate our entire driveway with a giant version of the symbol, and dozens of tiny symbols bordering the whole area. That symbol was a swastika. My mom was horrified. She quickly educated me on what the symbol meant, and I ran out and changed them all to look like windows.